This is possibly the best camera phone in the world. It's the first phone in years that genuinely made me consider switching from Samsung, which is annoying because I also don't really trust it. Just look at this camera bump, the sensors inside are enormous. On paper, this completely demolishes everything. In fact, the non-ultra version of this phone marks number 2 as the best camera phone on DxOMark, so imagine how good the Ultra must be. I'm talking an almost 1-inch main camera sensor, a 200 megapixel zoom sensor, and an ultra wide that's literally bigger than most main sensors. My expectations were through the roof, and after some testing, I'm a little bit confused, and I don't think I can switch to it, so what happened? I was really excited when this phone came out, and sadly Vivo didn't send this phone to me. In fact, they very kindly ignored all of my DMs and my 700 emails. That's okay, I'll just buy it myself. That's okay, I'll just import it. From China. It's gonna be Chinese. Nice. Immediately you notice how freaking massive this camera bump is. It's probably the only phone that you can pick up by the camera. This bump is almost as thick as another phone, and the lenses look intimidating. Like, look at it, it looks like some tunnel, and the phone looks like a GTA ramp. But I don't have a problem with any of that as long as the camera is actually good. What makes this camera so unique is that the main sensor is 35mm, or in other words, it's 1.5x instead of 1x. It's not a crop, it's not a digital zoom, it's actually designed to be 1.5x, and I absolutely love that. Usually the 1x has a very NPC looking view, you can just tell it was shot on a phone. But the 1.5x has a way more natural perspective, it looks like a real camera. And combine that with the bigger sensor and the background blur is insane. Side by side with like any phone, this looks like a mirrorless camera, which at the same time makes it kinda hard to compare it. But I also have a lot of nitpicks, but before I start grilling the phone, I have to give it some credit. There is an option to select filters for the camera, and within that filter you can manually adjust the tone and the saturation. You can adjust all of these cool settings, add grain, halo, and you can even turn down the sharpening and save this preset and even use it in the video mode. Hello? Why is no one else doing this? This is such a cool feature. I hate sharpening, so I love the fact that I could just tone it down all the way. So using this as my daily camera, that 35mm felt a little bit claustrophobic, which pushed me to use the ultra wide, and the ultra wide really shines on this phone. And to prove that, I'm gonna film this entire sponsored integration for UGREEN using this ultra wide. Filming stuff on your phone can completely violate the battery, which is why UGREEN made this MagFlow Air magnetic power bank, which can wirelessly charge your phone with Qi 2 at 15 watts, and it's slim enough not to feel like a brick. But if you need a little bit more juice, they also have a thicker version with double the capacity, and this one actually has a built-in cable which supports 30 watts of charging, and this cable can charge the iPhone 17 Pro to 50% in just 19 minutes. This has literally become my go-to power bank. Every time I leave the house, I always stick this in my bag. Also, you see this? This is an old 65 watt charger that I used to have, and this is UGREEN's Air 65 watt charger. This thing is tiny in comparison, and it even folds down, but I would highly suggest that you check the links down below because I genuinely use this stuff every single day and I really like this. So yeah, links down below, and let's test our ultra wide. A typical ultra wide sensor is pretty tiny like this, but Vivo slapped like the biggest ultra wide sensor I have ever seen. This was a huge criticism that I had with the Xiaomi 17 Ultra because they put some crappy ultra wide sensor and surrounded it with all these monster sensors. But this is on another level. The quality barely drops when you switch the lenses, and the low light performance is just crazy. I find the ultra wide on my phone very useful, probably more useful than most people. I love taking these POV shots, and I love filming random stuff for B-roll because you can get really close. So when I saw the size of that ultra wide sensor, I was almost instantly sold. However, as good as it seemed on paper, it very quickly fell apart when I tested it. Just take a look at this. Do I need to say anything? Do you see the highlights? When I first tried the ultra wide, I was like, wait, it's not even that wide. It is so much more cropped than my iPhone. Luckily in the settings, I found an option to expand the angle, which I assume crops in to aggressively stabilize the video. So if I'm using an ultra wide, I need it to be as wide as possible, and that default crop is way too aggressive. And this doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you select this option, close the app and then come back, this option doesn't save, which is really annoying. And the video preview just gives me anxiety because it looks worse than even this Samsung, and I already made a video explaining how the Samsung preview looks so much worse than the iPhone, and this looks worse than the Samsung. And actually pressing the record button didn't make much of a difference, because what is going on with the exposure? It's like Vivo has no idea what to do in these situations. Everything is too bright. And that is my biggest issue with this phone. Yes, it will let in so much more light, it will look so much brighter, but then it will just fumble the very basics. Like, how can I trust this phone? And this is where my trust just keeps evaporating. Take a look at this low light zoom sensor on Vivo. I think we can both agree that Vivo sensors are like light years ahead. But the amount of smoothing and noise reduction and scaling and I don't know, redrawing is actually criminal here. Of course, this photo is way more usable, but it's so artificial looking. Even the colors, like, where did the blue come from? Look at this selfie, it is way too overprocessed. And then look at the Samsung one, it doesn't look as good, but at least it knows its limits. It just gives up, it doesn't try. But the Vivo, like, it does too much on my face. And before you ask, yes, I turned off all the smart optimizations, I turned off that telephoto enhancing thing. I even tried a feature called raw light, which basically reduces some of the processing like HDR, but it doesn't affect the sharpening or the noise reduction, so I might as well just keep it on. And then speaking of selfie, in the video mode, you don't get any of those filters or any of those sharpening options, so in the end, it just comes out looking very meh. The point I'm trying to make is that the potential of this phone is literally like up here, but the consistency of the video mode, especially video, is a little bit questionable. I was so excited about that ultra wide sensor, but seeing how confused it is and all these tricky lighting scenarios just made me not want to use it anymore. And to be fair, in normal daytime photos, this phone looks really good. In good lighting, you don't really notice all of this overprocessing. Like, when I saw this photo, I could not believe my eyes that this came from a phone. So one thing that I noticed is that the preview for video is usually not the best, but then if you go to photo, the preview changes drastically and it looks much better. So I think the problem isn't really the camera, it's the video. In photos, this is amazing, but as soon as you press video, a lot of the processing disappears and it doesn't look as good. So if you don't trust your phone not to fumble the very basics, I feel like, what's the point of having all of this insane hardware? This is like the best phone for photography ever, but then when it comes to video and selfies, I just want to use my iPhone. It's just more reliable. I saw that recently Mr. Who's the Boss switched from his iPhone to the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, and I know that's a different phone, but seeing how both Xiaomi and Vivo have these overprocessing issues, I suspect that Oppo probably runs into the same problems. I don't doubt these photos, I fully believe that they're insane, but once you start nitpicking, you start noticing a lot of these flaws. So then what? Do I just hate this phone? Not at all, because using it in manual mode completely changes everything. In the video mode, there's a pro mode where you can enable log. You can mess around with manual settings, all the usual stuff. And I realized that the log footage, for once, disables all of the processing. It actually looks very natural now. I keep barking at Xiaomi because they keep sharpening their log videos, like, why? And Vivo actually gives me good results. It's not like other phones can't do log, but manual settings and log with all these crazy ass sensors is insane. It gives me so much power, and for once, I feel like I'm leagues ahead of all the other phones. And manual photography continues to shine on this phone because all of the free lenses support 50 megapixel raw photos. However, I do have to mention that in that pro video mode, for some reason, it just doesn't remember the resolution. It remembers everything else, but as soon as I close the app, it resets to 1080p. So now I feel like I constantly have to monitor the app just to make sure that nothing resets. Also, because this is a professional phone, I thought, I'm gonna use Blackmagic to record some stuff and ignore this preview. Where is the zoom lens? Why is that missing? Also, in the color space, look at this. No log. What do you mean no log? So that's why I'm so confused about this phone. On one hand, I'm not a big fan of the processing and I wouldn't want to use this as my daily driver to rely on. But on the other hand, the hardware is so good, and in pro mode, this is on another level. So again, I don't think this phone is bad by any means. I just think you should know what kind of person you are, because if you buy this phone and you never touch the manual settings, you never do RAW, you never do log video, it doesn't make sense. But if you're a photographer and you know exactly how to use a camera, and for me, I need a phone to be quick. I already have a Sony camera, so I need something reliable. I don't need the best, I just need something balanced, which is why I just can't switch to this. So if you found this video helpful, do nothing. Just enjoy your day.